Hi everyone, my name is Alex Smith and this is my YouTube lesson on funky guitar rhythm playing and technique on an 8-string guitar. So let's dig in. First thing, kind of important when you're doing the funky kind of James Brown, like that kind of stuff, is your tone. And you want a clean tone, you want a crisp tone, you want to kind of more on the trebly side than the bass, but you want it thick and meaty too. And a lot of people use the Stratocasters or the Telecasters, the single coil pickups. Depending on what style you're going for, depending on what ensemble you're in. But you do want some of that high end, the upper frequencies, like. So if you're using like something like an 8-string and you have the low B and F sharp, you gotta make sure you have some pickups with some treble, with a lot of treble in them. On this guitar, I have two EMG 808s, and I have a Fishman coil tap pickup in the middle, which I installed, and then I switched out the 3-way switch, which comes standard on the Ibanez RGA 8s, and I put in a 5-way switch. And sometimes you can get, like on the Stratocasters, and you can get the pickup combinations in between the pickups to get a cool kind of funky sound. Like you want a short little decay because it almost acts as like a rhythmic instrument. Once you get into what we'll talk about in a little bit, you get into some of the muting and palm muting techniques that go into funk playing. You got a lot of different techniques going on, but we'll get into that. But just for a quick example of what I'm using this Panama Inferno 100 watt head into the Panama extension cabinet, one bass driver, 110 and 112. I also went to the 410 extension cabinet. Both of these are enclosed, which kind of pushes the air out straight and give a more defined directional sound. And then I also have it going into the Fender Deluxe with the 112 extension cabinet enclosed. The Deluxe is open back, and I also, to get kind of a little tighter sound, a little more defined sound out of this, they're great for clean tones, but I also have the effects loop going into the Sansamp GT2 Tech 21, or I should say the Tech 21 Sansamp G2 GT2, just to kind of, I'll show you without it, and then with it. Just kind of cleans up the bottom end a little bit. You can add some bass, some low end, but it just kind of cleans up the low end. Adds a lot of nice clean warmth and crispy nice staccato, because when you're doing the funk rhythm, it's like you're placing the stuff in a certain spot and then you're letting it go right away, almost like a drum in a way. I guess that's the next thing to get into, is a lot of the rhythmic stuff is a lot of very pronounced. You got to be accountable for wherever you place your 16th notes, your 8th notes. It's a lot of repetitive patterns, like I'm going to do it with metronome real quick. kind of break down what I did just there was I used the low strings as the bass notes and then used the upper strings as the chords, the harmonies. The chords, I was using a lot of ninths, a lot of the James Brown chord, a lot of the Jimi Hendrix chord, which would be like the root, the third, the seventh, dominant seventh, and then the fifth, the sixth, the 13, the 9 this way. A lot of those upstrokes. When you're doing funky stuff, you kind of, one way to stay with that crisp attack and that crisp trebly high sound, the thin high sounds, is upstrokes. That really depends on who you're playing with, what kind of instrumentation there is, how much space you have within the mix to put that stuff in there. Because it doesn't take up a lot of room, and it takes up a specific frequency. And if you're playing off the hi-hat or something, or just adding sparse little rhythmic parts in there, it can be pretty cool. One way to add accents, or to define like the downbeats, because a lot of the times you accent on the one, the downbeat of the measure, you can then use heavy downstrokes. That's James Brown always did that give it to me on the one kind of thing, and that's the downbeat. Another thing is just a lot of the picking, the fret hand, a lot of palm muting. There's a lot of muting with your an important technique when you're playing the funky kind of thin kind of rhythm stuff is in your, for me it's my left hand, but your fretting hand, because there's a lot of muting you have to do. There's a lot in your right hand rhythmically, but there's a lot also kind of a vibe. Usually, you would speed it up. So it's really cool when you add accents at the cadences, the end of the measures, or the end of the phrases, I should say, not the measures. And you add accents like, and that's a lot on the upbeats that to add the excitement, a lot of the high-end trebly. So if one and buildup of the excitement, I should say, to the end of the phrase, that's a good technique and trick to use. So another common thing when doing the funk rhythm stuff is using a Wawa pedal. I happen to have one here. And with the Wawa pedal, you can accent and add punchiness in certain spots. Like when you engage the Wawa, you add the treble end. And when you disengage the Wawa or you roll off the high end, it kind of blends in a little bit differently with the mix. And then you can obviously use your foot to filter back in. Like, for example, if you have a straight 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and then you just do quarter notes with your foot, you get. And on the downbeats, that's when you hit the strings or hold down the strings to get the chords. So you accent the chord and establish the harmony, and then you're muting the rest of it. You can add different combinations of. A lot of the cool funk stuff is when you do the accentuate, you change the chords on the off timings, like, and you can add a lot of excitement that way. You can add a lot of forward motion. Kind of like a chugging, like in the gospel guitar, it's like constant moving. So 1 and 2 and if it helps to sing it. The important thing is to do this real slow and to make sure you get the timing right and the technique right. Down, up, down, down, up, for example. It's all just slowing it down and knowing where you want to put the syncopation. The cool thing with the 8-string guitar is you can add the bass notes and you can kind of do a low bass line with the chord. So with the extended range, you just get just that, an extended range. So that's kind of an introduction to some of the funk guitar techniques and playing, and a lot of palm muting. A lot of left hand muting. The pick, how I hold the pick is between my, like this, very loose. Very loose. Movements in your. practice with a drum machine or a metronome is a great way to get good timing with this and with your syncopation.
Yeah.